Greetings everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Internet Fables. You know, so far this little series of mine has covered major internet celebrities of a mass influence over the medium who were culturally significant, strange yet misunderstood internet figures, and total fucking creeps. So, after that last episode, I think it's time we look at something a bit more wholesome, but far more obscure. The tale of a group of college friends making a passion project that caught the attention of screwattack.com, a series about Sega Genesis games, high school, and fighting zombies at some point, I guess. A tale of a series that was propped up alongside the likes of the angry video game nerd and nostalgia critic, but was ultimately nothing like those two, and furthermore, never had the same cultural impact or staying power those two other series had on the internet. A series that in some ways was ahead of its time, and in others was very much a product of its time. This is the forgotten tale of Captain S.
This does not even deserve the captain's log introduction, because this is dead serious.
So I've got a message out there for every fucking troll with a headset and a copy of modern warfare.
Excuse me, I have some memories I need to repress.
I hate the N-word, and by N-word, I mean nerd, not...
Hello gamer fans, Spax here.
Everyone, I'm so glad you're still watching Avgn after 15 years.
The year was 2006, and internet content creation, specifically videos, were still in their infancy. Yet it was around this time that a creator by the name of James Rolfe first started uploading his videos onto YouTube, creating what would, outside of the first episodes, be the first season of his landmark series, The Angry Video Game Nerd. But we've already told that story. But meanwhile, somewhere else on the internet, a man by the name of Chad Williams had come up with a rather funny joke. You see, there's this cartoon that came out around the late 80s called Captain N, the Game Master. The show was an American animated television series that aired on TV from 1989 to 1991 as part of the Saturday morning cartoon lineup on NBC. Produced by Deke Entertainment, the same guys who did the Sonic SatAM and Super Mario cartoons, if you're familiar. The show was about Captain N, or Kevin Keene, who was this teenager who is taken to this place called Videoland, where he has to help out all these Nintendo game characters defeat evil Nintendo game characters. Pretty obviously the N in Captain N standing for Nintendo. There really isn't much else to it besides that. It's a cheesy and pretty bad show overall, and a good portion of it was kind of just like a Nintendo game catalog commercial, albeit a pretty fucking bad one considering some of these awful character designs. Still though, I imagine if you were a kid and enjoyed playing video games, you probably watched the show, or at least some of it around that time, just to see if any of your favorite games or characters would end up showing up. Well anyway, back to Chad. Chad was a kid who grew up playing with Nintendo's primary rival back in the day, Sega. And so Chad thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I cosplay as Captain N, but instead I'm Captain S for Sega? Well, evidently, this is something Chad did end up doing, and he would even go to conventions at some point and trolled random people, mostly Nintendo fans and anyone cosplaying as something Nintendo related, and had a bit of fun playing this new character, pretending the war between Nintendo fans and Sega fans were still a very much ongoing thing, and would just generally be an overzealous Sega-Chad. A very Chad-like behavior, I must say. I'm sorry, I had to do it at least once. Unfortunately, this event wasn't recorded. What was recorded, however, is what came next. Chad would then make a video parodying Captain N even more, in what is dubbed by the creators as the Old Adventures of Captain N, or the Unspeakable Pilot. This pilot, however, has unfortunately never officially been released online to my knowledge except through a DVD, but we'll get to that later. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, do we? At any rate, this pilot apparently went over pretty well with Chad's friend group, including Brett Vanderbrook, Lindsay Briggs, and Darren DeMarco. These four had met through an improv group at Fredonia State University, and Chad and Brett Vanderbrook in particular had worked together through X-Strike Studios, an independent film company that was founded in 2003, which according to their About section on their website states, quote, "Disgusted with Hollywood's attempts at adapting video games to the big screen, X-Strike set out to make parody films that gaming fans could truly appreciate. From the initial run of 2003 to 2014, X-Strike produced 5 feature-length movies, a number of shorts and series on YouTube, a documentary, and way too many podcast episodes." Unquote. While they're not extremely important to this story, it's worth noting since they were truly some of the very first of their kind back in the day, forerunners in online video game-based entertainment. And it was due to their time working alongside X-Strike Studios that when Chad and Brett were in New York, they decided they wanted to keep doing that they wanted to make online videos about video games. And so, Chad's little skit of Captain S would turn into the building block of something much more ambitious.
He's Captain S, and he is one hell of a guy. He's Captain S, be glad that he is on our side. The bad guys do not stand a chance. They see him and they wet their pants. He'll kick their butt from here to France, oh yeah. He's Captain S.
The New Adventures of Captain S would debut in January 13th of 2007 on YouTube, and while I can't find the exact proof of this, seemingly came out on screwattack.com as well around this same time. It also came out on Chad and Brett's new website, PBC Productions, which would be their new hub alongside their YouTube channel for uploading their future content. In case you're wondering, PBC Productions stands for Place by the Creek Productions, which for a few years was actually a complete mystery to fans what the PBC stood for. This was elaborated upon more in a podcast released in May 15th of 2011 called Racket Boy, in which Brett Vanderbrook and Chad Williams were interviewed about the series.
And so you said you got started in 2007, 2008, or is that, you said you were active then? When did you begin the company?
It started in 2006 actually. The
and this is for our listeners. This is Brett, and the other voice was Chad.
Hi, yes, this is Brett. Know my voice, okay? You're gonna have to listen to it for the next however long. Yeah, we started it in late 2006. It was spawned by Captain S. Captain S came first, and once we had shot and produced one episode of Captain S, we kind of all decided that, we should probably have some kind of a production company to stand behind this product we're making. And we settled on the name PBC Productions, and I think we can openly talk about this now. It's the cat's out of the bag. The PBC, 3 out of the 4 people who started the company went to a little liberal arts college in Western New York called Fredonia State. And there was, to make a long story short, there was an old water treatment plant near the college that was abandoned, and it was a great place to shoot student films, especially anything horror related. And it was by a creek called Canada Way Creek. And so people started calling it the Place by the Creek, which got shortened to the PBC. And so we thought that when we started the company, it was something that we all had in common. And we thought it was kind of cool, and nobody knew what it meant, and we didn't tell anybody. But then we later just found out that most people just confused it with PBS or just didn't, it was a random assortment of letters. And
yeah, we kept that a secret from the fans and from all of our other kind of business cohorts for years and years. But
yeah, we're just tired of that.
Yeah, it's over.
The first 3 episodes of Captain S also premiered at MagFest before hitting the internet. But with all that said, perhaps we ought to take a peek at the contents of the first episode.
You may be asking yourself, Self, who is that righteous dude with the fresh cut and flared nostrils? Well, friend, that dude is this dude. Yours truly, Chad Belmont, Sega Genesis Authority, and all-around bad mother brother. Yep, that's me. Well, at least, that was the old me. Yeah, it turns out this Saturday, well, chill out, bro. You'll see.
We are first introduced to our protagonist, Chad Belmont, played by Brett Vanderbrook, instead of Chad Williams, which, yes, the character in the series of Captain S and the creator of the original Captain S share the same name. Something which Chad himself claims wasn't even his idea, and it has been a source of confusion for many a people who first got into Captain S pretty much since forever. And obviously, I've already mentioned this, but the series was thought up by Brett Vanderbrook and Chad Williams along with their other friends. But there are many who may erroneously think that Brett Vanderbrook, the guy who plays Captain S in the series, is the main source of creation behind this, series. I mean, after all, you would be correct if you were talking about Avgn and James Rolfe, or Nostalgia Critic and Doug Walker, but this is a case where the main actor, Brett Vanderbrook, while he was an important part of the team, it was Chad Williams who was the origin point for the series and did a lot of the other behind-the-scenes stuff like editing and some of the writing and all that sort of good stuff. At any rate, Chad here starts his day by playing some good old Sega Genesis before we get a quick montage of his morning routine, including putting on his iconic Captain S jacket, and then transition into what is, without a doubt, the best part of this show, its intro. The intro was made by Glenn Case, a musician who's still active on YouTube to this day. While the series would have several bits of music that came from video game OSTs throughout it, as the series went on, they would lean on Glenn Case for his music more and more, which did end up giving this show a distinct vibe, and there are some really fucking great bangers throughout.
He's Captain S, and he is one hell of a guy. He's Captain S, be glad that he is on our side. Monsters found the path that leads into our world. In just moments now we can see this flag of birth.
Anyway, this episode goes on to show Chad give greetings to his various Genesis games before being interrupted by the phone.
Hey, you kill me, girl.
Where the bonk's revenge are you, Chad Belmont?
Becky?
You were supposed to meet Lunk and me a half hour ago in front of the youth center for the Junior Prom Decorating Committee bake sale.
Bake sale, right. I totally didn't forget all about that. They're in black.
And don't forget, Pepper, you're bringing a cupcake.
Don't worry, guys.
Here we see Chad's main friend group in the series. Becky, played by Amy Hong, and Lunk, played by Shale Riley. As you can see by this rather cliche interaction, Chad's a bit of a slacker. His mind is set firmly in the world of Sega games, not whatever his high school is up to. Meanwhile, Becky is the responsible one who does care about that sort of stuff, as she's the brains of the group. Meanwhile, Lunk, he's just literally Jughead from Archie. He's laid back and likes to eat and, yeah, that's pretty much it for Lunk. I guess he is also a bit of a jock, so there is that part of it as well. But yeah, the characters are two-dimensional, and they don't really ever stop being two-dimensional, but very much by design. Chad then walks out of his apartment and comes to a wall with what looks to be arrow signs graffitied on it. One leads to cupcakes and the other games. Chad, being the Chad that he is, decides to go and get some new games. You think this wall still has those graffiti arrows on them to this day? If so, do you think people ever question what the fuck someone meant by this? So Chad comes up to this sketchy looking alleyway vendor and sees a really weird looking Genesis cartridge, which he goes to reach for, just as our villain of the series gets formally introduced.
Belmont, your unabashed lack of taste never ceases to amaze me.
This is Ness, played by Devin Riley, who obviously, with the Power Glove and the Game Genie in each of his hands, and the name Ness, he is the Nintendo fan. The virgin Nintendo player versus the Chad Sega enjoyer, harking back to the origins of this character trolling random Nintendo fans. Of course, it's all in good fun, and I will say that Devin is clearly having a lot of fun with this role at that.
What do you know of power?
One word, Ness. Blast processing.
You're blind, Belmont. Your flash-in-the-pan processing has its limits, and when it runs out of juice and you're looking for some serious game time, you'll be wishing you were playing with this kind of power.
The whole thing also plays on the whole console war between Sega and Nintendo during the early 90s, with, at one point, the Sega Genesis being out and sporting far better graphics than the Nintendo Entertainment System could provide. Meaning, I suppose, the Captain S series takes place during that time frame, before Nintendo could eventually come out with their counter to the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo. Bearing that in mind, I suppose that would mean that this series would take place between August 14th, 1989 and August 23rd, 1991. But also, Chad has Sonic memorabilia and the game Sonic the Hedgehog in his room, which came out in America in June 23rd of 1991, meaning the series must take place between June 23rd, 1991 to August 23rd, 1991. Oh, but wait, Chad also owns Vector Man, which was released in October 24th, 1995. Oh shit! Looks like this really old internet series royally fucked up. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm probably putting more thought into this than they ever did. But since these 16 bits of the Genesis is a constant thing Chad hangs over Ness's head,
It's all about the bits, bro! It's all about the bits. 16? It's a lot more than 8.
I just sort of assumed it would have to take place before the Super Nintendo was out, since old Ness here could just simply throw a swinging comeback to Chad about the Super Nintendo also having 16 bits. Unless the show actually takes place in the current year, or current year of 2007, and Chad is just a guy who still plays and pretty much only plays Sega Genesis games, and Ness is just a total fucking Nimrod who based his entire thing around the less powerful console, something he seems to be compensating with all these Nintendo accessories. Which is ironic, because if he were to use the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis would then compensate with the Sega CD and the Sega 32X as things that they would do, which, I mean, I don't know how that works. And if we go all the way to the current year, 2007, I mean, clearly NES won out in this argument, right, between Sega and Nintendo, since Sega, well, fucked up with the Sega Saturn, and then the Dreamcast, well, got destroyed by the PS2, essentially. And Nintendo was still very much a big, and is to this day, a big company still making consoles. But that's never ever brought up, and the characters kind of seem to act like they are in that space of time in the middle of 1991, like I alluded to earlier. So what's the truth of this? What's the lore behind this? I don't fucking know. I mostly bring it up because it's one of those things that even as a kid kind of confused me at least a little bit, and has only confused me more the older I've gotten. But alright. Enough overthinking the inner universe of Captain S. So Chad buys the strange Genesis cartridge that costs the exact amount of money he just so happened to have left, and then Chad brings the game home, slots it into his beloved gaming console, and after fiddling with it to try and get it to work, including blowing into it, which seems to make this strange chiming noise after he does so, he finally gets the game started, noting to the picture of his friends that some things are just more important than baked goods, before being sucked into the TV.
Whoa, where am I? What is this place?
You, young champion, are on a plane of existence outside the blast processor core, deep within the Mega Drive.
It's here where Chad meets this talking blue head played by Chad Williams, and he explains why fate has brought him here this day.
Videoland, the ultimate warp zone! As is foretold by the Book of Genesis, a stranger clad in blue and bearing a serpentine mark will fall from the outer worlds and champion Videoland against the forces of evil.
Champion? Are you talking about me?
You see any other champions on this plane of existence? Do you? No. It's just you and the giant floating head. So figure it out.
Whoa. Champion? I can't even pass phys ed, let alone champion an entire land thingy.
Fret not, legendary hero, for a knight nary enters a fray without his arms.
Radical! This stuff looks top of the line.
The controller, the zapper, the, mouse!
These three weapons of lore are at your disposal in the fight against the evil plaguing Videoland.
Whoa, forget phys ed. I could be varsity quarterback with this bad boy.
And so ends your tutorial, young champion, for there is little time to waste. Outside forces already lay siege to Altered Beat Land. Who knows what terrors they set upon our worlds? Go forth, young hero, and vanquish young foes, for I dub thee Captain S, Video Defender.
Sega!
And so Chad becomes Captain S, Video Defender, who I'll try to refer to him as from now on to try to clear up some of the confusion. Is here where we see the first kind of cool gimmick of the series, that being that Captain S fights evil within the graphics of the video games. This is actually a pretty fucking cool effect for its time, especially since it was done frame by frame by Chad Williams, again, who did a lot of the special effects and filming and editing and all that sort of stuff, as noted again in that interview.
So then, in producing the show, what did you find to be the most enjoyable part of the process? Was it the filming? Did you take multiple takes of different things and enjoy that, or was it the editing and production work? What was the favorite for each of you, maybe, of the production process?
Chad, you field that question. You did most of the production.
Yeah, I shot most of it, and I edited the show and did all the special effects. I'm making the quote thingies with my hands.
Yep.
Special effects. I think it was just great to do it. You know, like I didn't have anything going on at that time. I really wanted to create something, and I was doing, just like doing this project out of love and my love for like those old TV shows in my youth. I just loved, being in the moment and creating the work and just loving what we were doing and running around without a budget, just scraping here and begging there. I mean, it was definitely stressful, and there were, we were pulling like really long hours, definitely all of us, but that was just a blast.
Now, as impressive as the effects are, the actual content of this section is, not all that funny or anything, in my opinion.
Ah! No touchy, zombie! Take that! Taste fist, undead! The heck is that? A pig or something? Well, blue pigs get the kick! Everything gets the kick! Shin kicking! Are you serious? Where do these guys keep coming from? Kick, kick, kick! I could kick all day.
But this eventually leads to Captain S needing to fight this first boss of the game, who has the power glove on and seems to be Ness, I guess.
Heads up! Heads up? Oh, I get it! Heads up! Take that! And that! Now you're turning me red! That's it, I'm going in.
Hey, get out from there! That's my private spot! I hope you like red, because that's what I am now. Thanks! No! I'm smoking!
And so, Captain S, after defeating Ness in the game, shoots back out of the screen, never questioning why his in-real-life rival was in that video land. The episode ends with Becky and Lunk checking in on him, both rather peeved that he blew them off. Strangely enough, Becky says,
"You have never bailed on us like that before. What happened?"
Which is interesting because up until now it seemed like that was something this dude naturally did all the time, but whatever. Chad apologizes and all is well. They were just worried about their friend, and we have this little moment between the three of them.
Oh, Chad, it's not that you missed the bake sale. It's that we didn't know where you were. You should have called and given us a heads up.
Yeah, if you didn't want to come out today, you should have told us. Bake sales are cool and all, but nothing beats friendship. There will always be another bake sale.
Especially since Lunk ate half our stock this time around.
Gee, thanks a load, guys. You're awesomer than any Genesis game will ever be. Well, except for me.
Chad!
Just kidding!
So...
let's all get shakes! Yeah!
But then, we fade to black and into a new scene.
Him to get in our way. We need better codes.
What you need is discipline. Now re-enter Videoland and bring it to its knees.
You will be done, my liege.
Tremble, Videoland, at the pixelated feet of your new master.
Yes, Ness seems to be working for an evildoer who wants to take over Videoland. What will happen in the next episode of Captain S? Find out right after these messages. Episode 2 of Captain S starts off with a soccer game which Captain S isn't doing so well at. He's more of a gamer, don't you know? But he's trying out for the soccer team, not because he's into sports, but because he's trying to impress the popular girl in school, Stacy.
Sports is a load of teamwork, dedication, and testosterone-fueled prowess, of which I have plenty.
Hey, hotshot! Love the new do.
Holy load runner, is Chad Belmont chasing after Stacy Neufeld?
Please! The Chadster does not chase. Besides, you heard her. She totally digs my style.
Back on the lineup.
What she totally digs is soccer players, which you are totally not.
So yeah, I think you can figure out what sort of character she's gonna be. Also, a bit random to note, but when this guy has his hood up, he looks like the anti-Spax. So like, this guy would be talented, honest, and a protector of children instead of, well, you get the picture. He's also a pretty good athlete, unlike Captain S. A fact that gets Ness, who is spying on S this whole time, to hatch a brilliant scheme to use Captain S's weakness against him.
Oh, this is almost too delicious.
Heads up!
So Captain S decides to stop embarrassing himself and heads home, giving up on the whole soccer team thing. Only for, you guessed it, a soccer-related video game being in need of saving by him.
Fear not, FIFA Land, the captain has arrived. Wait, FIFA Land? What kind of name is... Oh, come on! You have got to be kidding me!
So he kinda sucks at the video game version as well, but if he doesn't defeat Ness in here, then he will never be able to escape the game, which kind of adds some extra stakes to this whole saving the video game thing, though I don't ever remember it being brought up again outside of this episode, but still. And so, Captain S remembers the advice that Lunk had gave him earlier that day before he decided to chicken out.
What was it that Lunk said?
Keep the ball close, don't be afraid to get physical, and don't overpower your shot.
Sega!
And he applies it to the game, all while this kind of really dumb voiceover plays over the game footage. No music, it's kind of lame if I'm being honest. In fact, anytime it's just the characters in the game doing the game stuff, there's not really ever any kind of fun or interesting or comedic commentary. It's just them kind of being like, yeah, oh, I'm gonna get you now. Oh, don't do that. I gotcha. You know, just kind of just generic video game noises, to be honest, with the occasional joke once in a while.
Alright, S, let's do this!
Yeah,
Woo!
come on!
Easy on the power, Cap. And... No!
Get down, Haraki.
Great, they scored. Oh boy, another goal for Nessistan.
And then eventually, things ramp up when some music by Glenn Case starts playing that transitions into the captain beating Ness in the game and then doing well at the real-life soccer too. Learning to conquer the challenge of the game world helped him to conquer the challenge of the real world. He thanks Lunk and then they all jump in freeze frame in typical Cheesemo fashion. I do like that the video game he plays here is connected to his real-life thing, and the series will do that a couple more times as well. The episode ends with us seeing Ness angry over his defeat, mirroring Claw from the Inspector Gadget cartoons with the shot framing.
A third infraction, and I shall decompress your code myself.
Not to worry, my liege. Captain S won't be a problem for much longer. He'll give us exactly what we want, even if we have to take it from him, bit by bit. Next time, Captain S. Next time.
Then we have episode 3. It's Valentine's Day, and Captain S is making a Valentine's card for his crush, Stacy, using the game Wacky World's Creativity Studio on the Genesis, of course, while Becky is knocking on his door, telling him he needs to study for his geography exam.
Go away.
Chad is going to fail his geography exam in 2 days if he doesn't make with the studying.
Look, Becky, I'm a little busy right now. Can't we make this a tomorrow thing?
Alright. Tomorrow after school, my place. We're gonna get in some serious study time, Buster.
Perfect.
But actually, Becky has a thing for old Chad, and has a Valentine's letter of her own that she wants to give to him. Ooh, the teenage drama thickens. Well, Chad ends up blowing Becky off, and he finds a chance to help Stacy study instead. This of course hurts Becky's feelings, and what really gets her upset is that the old captain is going to take Stacy to the Valentine's dance instead of attending the Valentine's horror movie marathon thing that he was going to go to with her and Lunk.
Hey Chad, where were you last night?
Oh, I was having a study session with Stacy Newfeld.
Oh. Well, we were supposed to, remember?
Oh, jeez. Becky, I forgot about our study date. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's cool. I didn't even remember either, you know? But we still have Valentine's Day, right? Scary movie marathon all the way.
About that, I was kind of going to ask Stacy to the Valentine's Day dance.
What? Whoa! Chad Belmont, what the Zack son are you on? You haven't missed one of the massacres in like the last 3 years. What are you gonna tell Lunk?
Oh?
Not now, Lunk. You're just this too, and then
So she tears up her Valentine's letter for Chad, and then wishes that Stacy would just disappear, something that Ness overhears and unleashes a couple of bad guys from the Streets of Rage game to knock the lights out of Chad and kidnap Stacy. Captain Ness does fight back and then jumps inside the game to save her, all while this jammin' song plays in the background. Well, while Chad is fighting bad guys in the game, Becky goes to his apartment to apologize for her outburst earlier, only to find that he's inside a video game and the talking blue head guy is asking if she wants to help him out as a video defender as well. They then work together to fight Ness after he delivers this kind of funny line.
Call me Captain S.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Prepare to relinquish your code, Captain Estrogen.
They fight him and beat him pretty easily and save Stacy. And now, the series goes on with Becky now aware of Captain S's occupation, for lack of a better term, and the two share a moment together.
You really saved my bacon in there, Becca.
Well, you would have done the same for me.
That's what friends do for each other, right?
Right. Friends.
Stacy?
But it all ends with Stacy waking up and Becky is left firmly in the friend zone. The episode ends with Ness failing for the last time and being overtaken by the Virtual Boy to work as a better pawn for the all-powerful Game Genie.
We would have had that code if it weren't for the interloper.
Cease your sniveling, pawn. We find your lack of skills disturbing. Our chances of securing the code to relieve us of this polymer entrapment have diminished quite enough.
No, this is not what we agreed upon.
More severe measures must be taken to ensure our success. Your biological components will adjust to suit our will.
Your will be done, Game Genie.
Now, before we go any further, these 3 episodes worked as the foundation for the rest of the short-lived series. It's a show about a guy fighting bad guys in video games and your average cliche teenage school drama. It's a fun little combination, but I do have to admit something and be straightforward with you guys. Back when I first discovered Captain S in the early days of screwattack, when I would patiently wait for the next episode of Avgn to come out, I remember losing interest around this point in the series. Not because of any one thing, mind you, but because the concept, while kind of cool, it just didn't grab me. Maybe it was because while obviously the high school drama and characters are clearly meant to be over-the-top archetypes, I guess I just found it a bit boring. I also felt that the times when the Captainess would go inside the video game world, while a very cool effect and one that took a lot of effort on their part to pull off at the time, it also felt a bit undercooked. Like nothing would really happen in there besides Captainess would quickly defeat the bad guy in like 2 minutes flat, beating Ness with little to no effort. Again, I suppose that was maybe also part of the joke, since Ness is a really incompetent bad guy, but it just didn't make for all that interesting of a show to me personally. It's also why, besides an episode here or there, until very recently, like within the last year or so, I never went out of my way to watch every single episode of this very short series. So while I have many fond memories of the early days of Avgn, I only really have a few vague memories of Captainess up until, well, recently, whenever me and my Discord friend group all got together to watch it around Christmas time. And I know I'm not the only one to kind of stop early on either. I mean, I know it's not the exact statistic, it's not the only place people watched it, but if you just base it off of their YouTube channel, the first episode of Captainess has a ton of views. And then you go to the next episode, there is a giant fall off. And then you go to the next one, there's a giant fall off by a lot. That's not to say the series doesn't have its diehard fans by any means. But when you're looking at a forgotten show, it's, I think, important to bring up why maybe it was forgotten to begin with. Now, there are many factors in that, and we will get to some of the more prominent and more important ones later on, but first impressions, I think, are a big deal, and it would seem for many there was a bit of a disconnect with this series. It is unfortunate because I also bring all this up to say that from episode 4 onwards, there's a clear shift that happens, starting with a better camera being brought in, as well as more ambitious ideas, much better special effects being used for the remainder of the series, and all a sense that everyone who was involved in creating this show had a better understanding and idea of where they wanted to take it and how to use the equipment and all this different shit that they are dealing with and learning from as they were making the show. Episode 4 also reestablishes the premise by Captainess explaining the setup to Becky.
Circuitry of video games, and Game Genie is desperately trying to take it over using Ness as an agent?
That's the long and short of it.
Well, I don't understand. Why does he need Ness? I mean, he must have more powers.
I think he's trapped or something. He needs Ness to set him free.
So, how did these powers come about, Chad? I mean, have you been holding out the whole time I've known you?
No, it just sort of happened.
Just sorta happened? Alex Kidd, do you understand the ramifications and repercussions of abrupting a transdimensional vortex?
Becky, I don't even understand half of what you just said.
Her being a logical, more scientific type, she has a lot of questions about this. And this is actually a pretty clever way of also exploring the lore and inner workings of Videoland and everything surrounding it, as well as a reminder to the audience and anyone new coming in. Captainess, of course, really doesn't know much about any of this stuff since he just sort of went along with it. He was just there for the fun after all. But of course, there is also a plot about a science fair project going on as well. Stacy and Becky having finished theirs already, while Chad and Lunk are having serious problems with theirs. Well, Ness sneaks a book into Lunk's pile and gives Captainess the idea to get some explosive stalagmites to kick his volcano experiment up a notch.
I must have picked it up with the others. Man, look at that little guy go! Explosive properties of stalagmites. Awesome. That would give our volcano the kick it needs. It's a shame that we couldn't visit.
So he jumps inside a game and goes looking for them. And it's here where we see another improvement. The effects are much more clean and impressive here. Even if Captainess is still just a PNG or a JPEG, although background moving up and down in accordance to his ship's movements is pretty impressive. And when you compare how his PNG looks before, when they had this strange filter over them, this just looks a lot better. Also, Becky monitors Captain Ness through a little Sega Nomad, or portable Sega Genesis, which is a fun, cool little touch. Anyway, Captain Ness does end up meeting up with Ness in this actually really well done sprite work. But he just sort of flies away from him and gets the stalagmite without beating Ness this time.
Look bigger in Videoland. With this puppy, we can't lose.
Becky and Stacy still win though with their experimentations with hedgehogs, moods or something, and we get a payoff to Captain Ness using that stalagmite.
You know, Lunk? I learned something.
Shut up, Preppy.
Which means, technically this episode, Ness won. Everything went according to his plan. I guess that virtual boy really did smarten him up. And what's more is his evil master, now instead of just being red static on a TV screen, we actually get to see what the Game Genie looks like.
He's playing right into our hands.
We find your progress adequate.
It's just as you said. Our trap was baited perfectly.
As they say in Videoland, if you spread peanut butter on a cracker, the squirrel will inevitably nibble.
And nibble he did.
And sometimes regular peanut butter is not good enough. Sometimes you need to use chunky peanut butter, and sometimes that does not even work, and sometimes you just need to slather your bare hands in honey and chase it around, and then chase it underneath the tree.
About Captain S.
Yes, the fool unwittingly destroyed that pesky barrier.
Our plan is coming into fruition.
Your days are numbered, squirrel.
It's an interesting effect they use for him. He kind of reminds me of a creepypasta character. Like, he's all staticky and glitchy and red, but, like, he obviously existed before all that stuff really came to be. But it's a funny thought, though, that the main bad guy of Captain Ness is a Zolgo-fied Game Genie creepypasta.exe thing. Also, this is yet again Chad Williams voicing the Game Genie. Speeding things up a bit, episode 5 introduces character Principal Blakemore, played by Robin Watkins, aka the actor who is without a doubt having some of the most fun on this show. You'll see what I mean in a second. So, old Chad is here at the principal's office because he's a slacker and isn't getting good grades and all that other stuff. And the two have a little back and forth, which I think is a pretty strong character moment for Captain S, but also the first time Blakemore gets to shine.
Belmont, pleasure as always. I'm beginning to grow accustomed to your face.
Thank you, sir. I'm flattered. But I don't think I'm your type.
Young man, if you spent half the time on your schoolwork as you do on making those wise remarks, you'd be valedictorian.
I don't know about that. Studying gives me headaches.
You've got a real attitude problem, Belmont. You're a slacker. Not only did you almost blow up the gymnasium with that homemade volcano of yours, but I just got word from Mr. Casey that you failed another geography exam.
Have you ever taken one of Casey's tests? I could beat ghouls and ghosts using my elbows before passing one of those doozies.
You need direction. That's your major malfunction. You lack discipline and responsibility, so go ahead, crack wise. But as long as I'm principal here at Bromley High, you are on the fast track to Nowheresville. Now, get out of here. You're taking up my oxygen.
Anyway, S wants to impress Stacy, but he's a deadbeat with no money, so he decides to get himself a job, and ends up getting a job as a box mover in a box delivery place.
All right? I want you to take all of these boxes over on this side and push them over to that side. Any questions? Yeah. When do I get a break? You're a real cut-up, kid. If you need me, I'm gonna be in my office enjoying a pudding cup.
And he struggles to move even just one big box in a cartoonish fashion. So he gets the wild idea to move the boxes using his controller from Videoland, which is apparently something that he can do now, I guess. He also uses supersonic speed and transportation powers to move them all. He then goes for a quick Sega break, only for the game he needs to save being a box-moving game. Meanwhile, over at Ness's lair, him and the Game Genie discuss how the captain is growing weak.
Grows weak, Master.
How can you be sure?
He's been abusing his powers in the realm of the flesh. I saw him today with my own 2 eyes. Every little cheat he uses in the real world brings his life meter down. He doesn't know it, but before long, his powers will be useless in either plane. Then that code will be ours.
Excellent. See to it that this process is sped along. I grow weary of this box.
As you wish.
Which is an interesting idea at the very least, that if he uses his powers in the real world, they decrease across both planes, though they never mention why it works that way. Anyway, Ness goes and speeds up the process, and attacks the captain in the game in this kind of cool little interaction.
Any plans for a fancy funeral, Ness? Cause you're about to be buried in a pine box.
What's the matter, Captain S? My 5.37 megahertz of power too much to handle?
Don't make me laugh, you 8-bit egghead.
Enough idle chatter. Let's get to the point.
Yikes! Spikes!
Say your prayers, Belmont.
No!
S ends up seeing the value of hard work after playing that game, and decides to go back to his job instead of slacking off and playing Sega games, only for him to get a phone call that he's been fired for leaving the job. But also, the TV man, we'll call him Philemon, notices that the Video Defender's power is draining quickly, ending on a cliffhanger with the Game Genie having captured Philemon.
Video?
What will happen next? Before we go on to episode 6 though, I will say, if Philemon, the TV man, knows that Captain S is using his powers in the real world, or that using them in the real world will drain his power, why did he never ever say that to Captain S? The show almost acts as though it was ever told to him at any point, or warned of him, but he never was warned. You figure old Philemon would have told his Video Defender that he shouldn't do that, and then when Captain S actually does end up doing it to basically cheat in real life, it makes more sense. In fact, you might even say it's akin to using a Game Genie, a cheating device, in real life. It's the dark side of being a Video Defender, that sort of thing. And would further be defining moments for Captain S as a character, since we already know he's really immature, but now he's literally doing the thing that Philemon told him not to do for his own personal gain, making for that lack of maturity even more apparent, so when he, goes through a whole character arc later on, it's like added effect. This is just simple writing stuff. Again, I know this is a lot of these people's first attempt at anything like this, but this just seems like something that should have been established way earlier, not just randomly now. So now whenever Captain S starts losing his powers, he didn't know that it was going to do that. He didn't know using his powers in the real world would have any negative effect. Why would he? No one told him that. You see what I mean here? At any rate, episode 6 opens with Philemon captured in Ness's lair. Ness trying to torture the all-powerful X-code out of him, or where its location is for the Game Genie, since that's the main thing he wants.
Ooh! Ow! The X-code shall never be your skinny ball of darkness. Ouch!
Meanwhile, we see Captain S clearly using and abusing his powers, so that he never has to get his ass off the couch.
Nope, not yet. Boy, I sure am thirsty. Oh yeah, invincible. That's how I'm feeling right now. Like I could ride the wave of awesomeness that is me forever.
Becky later warns him that there might be repercussions for using his powers all the time. Though again, I don't know how or why she would know/think that.
According to my calculations, your powers might have a finite usage on this plane. Chad, just promise me that you'll go talk to the head. He's the only one who knows for sure.
Talk to the head, eh?
She's right, dude. You should check with the big guy.
Nah, man. You should chill out and relax. He'd call you if he needed you. Let's all get a chili dog.
Whoa! Chili dog!
Will we get the peppers?
Yeah. Wonder where we could get a chili dog.
Well, just then, a bunch of zombie-like creatures start attacking them, and Lunk comes in to help them, which I suppose now would be his first exposure to seeing this sort of a video game stuff. And then we see that S explains to him that Ness is behind this whole thing. Lunk questions him since he thought the two of them were best friends, which leads to this actually cool little flashback with these puppets, revealing that yes indeed, at one point, the Sega Man and the Nintendo Man were in fact friends.
Were friends.
Well, Lunk comes up with the straightforward and pretty good idea of just going to Ness's house and confronting him head on, which S goes to do while Lunk and Becky deal with the monsters on campus. We then flash back to the very moment when their friendship died. It was, of course, over the Sega vs. Nintendo console wars.
Whoa! Genesis does! That sounds awesome! Nigel, we have to have one!
No way. It's all just hype and advertising. I bet it stinks like poo.
But look at the sweet graphics! And the speed! It's like hyper speed!
Your mom's on speed.
Hey!
Mom! Chad supporting an inferior game console.
Now, boys, I know that this might all seem important to you right now, but you can't let something as small as a video game come between your friendship. It's true, Sega might have better graphics, and they might do some things that Nintendo doesn't, but in the end, it doesn't really matter at all, because it's really all about the games. Does a lower processor speed make Mario any less fun? Does an extra button on a controller give Sonic any kind of extra powers? No! If you two can learn to get past your differences, well, maybe you'll come to appreciate the games on both consoles. And while I'm at it, you should support the developers that make the games and not buy used games from video stores because, boys, that's just pure profit that never makes it back to the artists. And what's more, kids in Ethiopia don't have Sega or Nintendo. In fact, they don't even have any food.
Yeah, well, I still think you're a tard face.
Yeah? Well, I don't even care about kids in Ethiopia. I want a Sega!
I hate you forever and ever!
Anyway, S goes to Ness's house, or Silverman's house, only to be attacked by more monsters, and his powers seemingly being drained. So he uses his controller like a whip, and finally reaches Ness's lair. He jumps into the TV and arrives at a power facility that is said to power all of Videoland. But this time, Captain S is too late. This time, Ness has his full, complete victory in what is without a doubt the best part of the show thus far. The two have a pretty cool confrontation.
No!
Belmont. Really must dedicate this victory to you. After all, you paved my way here. All that cocky talk. You just ran around using your powers. Well, how's it feel, loser? I win. All too easy.
S. Put the code back.
Why? So you can save the day and you and your friends can laugh it up once more over shakes? Oh, I've made my sacrifices, but it will all be worth it for the one moment I prove to you, once and for all, that the Nintendo Entertainment System is superior in all forms!
I'm sorry, Nigel.
Sorry called in sick today. And you don't even like the Blue Devils.
Quick, Chad, you only have 30 seconds.
No. I have to get back to the head.
Chad, you have to leave behind. There's a portal 5 rooms away, but it's closing.
Captain S is then forced to leave the game, his powers gone, his Genesis lit ablaze, and Ness having the code to bring the game genie into the real world, ending out to this fucking awesome song by Glenn Case. Will Captain S return? Well, there is still 4 more episodes left, but before we get into the final arc of the show, the grand finale, perhaps it's time to bring up another smaller show of sorts that was being made by the Captain S crew right alongside the show. Filler Fridays was basically a little side show in between episodes of Captain S that PBC made. They varied from behind the scenes stuff with the episodes and actors just goofing around, or little sketches involving the Captain S characters. Some examples in order include them singing the theme song to Full House.
Look! It's so hot! I ain't no hold on to everywhere you look. Everywhere it's so hot! Somebody who needs you. When you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look.
Ness and Captain S playing Connect 4 to the song made by, yet again, Glenn Case.
Go for it, red. Go for it, black. Go for it off my back. Connect 4, just 3 in a row. Go for one more. Go for it, too late, Joe. Connect 4.
Go for the fun of Connect 4. 4 in a row wins.
Go for the bottom and go for the top. Watch for the block. Forget it, you stop. Go for the glory. Go for that score. Go for it.
I win!
Connect 4. Go for it. Connect 4.
Captain S and Stacy at the Valentine's Day dance, and them not seeming to have the best chemistry together. Outtakes for episode 4, including a strange sort of promo for the show.
O'Connor,
Nigel Silverman.
what are you doing here?
I'm waiting for the new episode of The New Adventures of Captain S. What are you doing here?
Watching you wait.
Oh my god. Are you the face in my window at night?
I love you.
Well, are you watching it on pbc-productions.com?
No, I'm watching on screwattack.com.
Well, fine then.
Great.
Whatever.
Let's make out.
Fine.
Hey guys, what's going on?
And then we get this really strange blast from the past, with several people at the PBC crew doing a parody of AVG, not AVGN mind you, but a totally different video game related internet show at the time, AVG or Awesome Video Games, which was a show that so too was on screwattack at the time. You can actually find a playlist of their show on YouTube, hosted on the YouTube channel Far From Subtle. In case you're wondering what the show is like, well...
Awesome video games. Video games are awesome. Awesome video games. Video games are awesome. Awesome video games. Video games are awesome.
Hey there, dudes and dudettes! Welcome to Awesome Video Games. I'm Ace.
And I'm Chad. Today on Awesome Video Games, we're going to be previewing the Nintendo Entertainment System. Woo! Yeah!
Awesome video games.
Hey there, dudes and dudettes! We just booted up the game and we're ready to slay some dragons! Double time!
Mode A, 2 players. Hold on to your headbands, we're going in.
We just beat the dragon! Yeah! But not so fast! This is Double Dragon!
That's right, there's still one more dragon to beat in Mode B.
Let's give it a shot!
It's basically a very Wayne's World or a Bill and Ted type duo reviewing old video games, but filmed like in the most in-your-face TV show within a movie type deal with extremely fast but well done editing. It's a little fucking in your face and very loud, but I suppose was ahead of its time and a very unique take on reviewing / looking at games at the time, since most people, again, were just copying or emulating the angry video game nerd instead. Anyway, the PBC crew did a little parody of them since they mostly looked at Nintendo games. This parody would be about Sega games.
Radical Sega Games. Sega Games. Radical Sega Games. Sega
Whoa! Welcome to Radical Sega Games.
I'm Chad!
And I'm Beck.
Last week on Radical Sega Games, we premiered the Sega Genesis, also known as the Mega Drive.
16 bits of pure gaming power.
Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Oh!
Radical Sega Games.
It's a pretty decent little parody, though I will hand it to those other two. Their energy is pretty fucking hard to match, even if it kind of gives me a massive fucking migraine looking at it for too long. Anyway, the last Feel of Friday up to this point is actually a music video featuring that sick-ass song by Glenn Case at the end of episode 6. So, in other words, this is an officially made Captain S AMV, or I guess it would be VMV.
I wonder if you picked me just because our paths had crossed. Well, knowing what you know right now, would you have changed your mind? 'Cause I have failed to live up to the task I was assigned. And now that it is hopeless and we've met this sorry fate, are you willing to admit that choosing me was a mistake? It won't help for me to focus 'cause it's already too late. Now that it is the end, all I can do is sit and wait.
Pretty kino shit. Episode 7 opens with and I'm not kidding, a big lore dump about Videoland, the villain, and basically sets up the rest of the show's finale through a parody of Legend of Zelda Wind Waker's opening, which I'll go ahead and show in full real quick.
From the Book of Genesis, the legendary X-Code, the lifeblood of our sacred pixelated kingdom. When dawned, it provides strength beyond compare, protecting and guiding its user. More dangerously, it allows those who call upon its awesome might to traverse between worlds. Legend tells of 3 great powers who were entrusted with guarding the code. The desire for power began to fester within one of these entities, and he began to steal the X-Code, bit by bit, hoping to eventually possess the entire sequence and usurp control. He was clever, but ultimately proved to be careless. When the plot was unfurled and it was discovered that the code had been hacked, he was banished to an eternity in the confines of a cartridge, never to be allowed back into Videoland. Peace was restored, but it was foretold that evil would return and the world would once again find itself in peril. But in our darkest hour, a hero would descend, an honest, brave hero, bearing the serpentine mark, with the strength and valor to vanquish this demon and bring justice and light to our land forever.
Now that's pretty fucking cool. The drawings are a little hard to parse at first glance, I will admit, but besides that, it is a fun little way of building the universe of the show, I suppose. Though I will say picking The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, a Nintendo franchise, was a bit of a weird choice. I mean, I get why they did it, it's a really cool opening to parody, but Phantasy Star 4 is right here. I mean, come on. But at any rate, Captain S is pretty depressed and is drowning his depression in glasses of milkshakes. Philemon, Lunk, and Becky are all trying desperately to cheer Chad up, to save Videoland, but he doesn't seem to be budging. We then see the effect Genie is having on the Videolands. All the games are glitching and becoming warped versions of themselves. You might even say, Zalgofied, turned into EXE games.
They are taking the control in every game imaginable. Finally, we will have our revenge.
Amazing how easy it all seems with that pesky Captain S out of the way.
We will dominate every game until we have the ultimate control. The RPGs, the puzzles, the side-scrollers, the platformers, even the cute kiddie games. Everything will be mine.
We then get this funny little interaction where Chad finally sees the error of his ways.
What's the matter, kid?
There's monsters in my Game Gear.
That's tough. Life's tough sometimes, but just gotta suck it up. You know, sunshine and extra credits.
But I just want to play games.
Me too. Me too, kid. That's all I really wanted was to play games. But now he's gone and wrecked it for everyone. You know what? That sucks. Lunk was right. I've been so busy feeling sorry for myself that I didn't even stop to see the effect this was having on other people. That's it. I'm doing this one for the kids.
Who is that?
And accurate reaction to someone mentioning Captain S to this very day. And so we get an epic 80s montage, once again to the beat of, you guessed it, a Glenn K song. And once again, Glenn's music fucking elevates this series to heights it totally does not deserve. And by episode's end, Chad is ready to be Captain S again, ready to defeat Ness and the Genie. The next Filler Friday is bloopers from this episode, which includes a Yo Mama fight between Brett and Devin and this random ass fucking kid, which is pretty amusing.
Mom is so cool. When somebody stepped on a nickel in her house, she said, "You'll get off my life saving."
Oh! Your mom is so poor. When you stick a key in the front door, it goes out the back window. Oh!
My mom is so fat that your papa mistaken her for her refrigerator.
Oh? Oh! I don't know about that one, Daniel. I don't know, man.
Episode 8 shows the damage that Genie is further doing to games, and then transitions into Captain S jumping between game worlds and fighting monsters, trying his best to save them, all while Becky and Lunk discuss what's going on, and how worried Becky is for him. And also Lunk is pretty accepting of all this stuff and doesn't really question it outside of asking if this is a typical sort of day for her and Chad. Also gotta say, this episode really fucking shines in those screen effects, with some pretty smooth animations and transitions on full display. Seems like they were really getting into a rhythm and honed their craft by the series end with this sort of stuff. Though again, little narrative note, I wonder why the game Genie isn't affecting worlds outside of Sega Genesis games and NES games. Again, I guess it's for the same reason that no one else acknowledges them. It's just a weird fucking universe they all apparently live in. Captain S pretty handily saves most of the game worlds, resulting in Ness beginning to question Genie's powers, and if he's really all he's cracked up to be, sitting on his throne while Captain S defeats all his forces. Then the Game Genie reveals that if he can't have Videoland, then perhaps it's time to take over a world full of hatred and greed, full of people who would gladly fall under him. The real world.
He's won, Game Genie. He's beaten you on your own turf while you just sat here and watched.
Insolent dog! You were supposed to have put an end to this meddler.
Apparently he needs another lesson. In pain.
Fool! What you once defeated is a mere shadow of this current threat. There are other ways of achieving the victory. If Videoland is to sway once more to order and truth, then I will find a new world to conquer. A world already filled with lust, greed, and villainy. A world that is screaming out for a new emperor. You, meek things, will be taught to obey. You will sit here and watch as your world bows before me. I will begin with what you both hold dear, the local high school and all of its inhabitants. The Game Emperor shall reign terror never before seen.
Ooh, the Game Emperor shall reign terror never before seen. Ooh, terror, terror, I'm a terrorist.
I don't know, something about that line is kind of funny. And so the genie possesses the body of Principal Blakemore and calls Becky to his office, ending the episode on a cliffhanger. The next 2 episodes of Captain S work as one long episode in a way, a full-on finale. But before that, the Filler Friday, the last Filler Friday, isn't so much filler as it is bonus content for the series, as Captain S goes to sleep after a long day of saving Videoland. He then begins to have some pretty wild dreams, like Lunk being a talking hamburger, or Becky being this masked person who has the power to give him the Sega 32X and says that she and everyone else is waiting for him, or Ness becoming a little man who S crushes and then becomes. I'm not really sure if there is much meaning to any of it, but maybe it's symbolic of stuff that would come to happen in Season 2, or maybe it's symbolic of how Chad sees others, or I don't fucking know, but it's a pretty cool and fun diversion before the finale of the series. Episode 9 opens with the school bully seeing a zombie, and through like a weird glitch thing, turns into a zombie as well. Later, when Captain S arrives at the school after being rather late, the halls seem empty, with some decent bits of camera work as he sneaks into his science class.
Okay, no hall monitors. Level 1 complete. Shinobi stealthily makes his way through the monastery,
only to find himself surrounded by zombies. A chase ensues, and just as it seems like Captain S is about to have his brains eaten, Stacy and Lunk come to the rescue with some makeshift weapons. They then all run into a safe room, Resident Evil music and all. Lunk and Stacy go to fight more zombies, and S goes to find Becky. Along the way, he fights his school bully and eventually finds Becky, tied up and in a zombie-like state, just as everyone else. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the greatest scenes from this entire series. A moment that made everything come together. I'm just gonna show you this in full.
Not you too.
My. If it isn't Captain S, we are impressed. We thought you'd be a zombie by now. Come to rescue the girl, have you?
Principal Blakemore?
No, we're afraid not, my boy. Principal Blakemore has taken, oh, how shall we say, a sabbatical. In the meantime, we will be filling his shoes, which are quite comfortable, by the way. He must make quite a nice salary to afford such luxurious footwear.
Game Genie.
Ah, you are much brighter than we gave you credit for. Yes, Mr. Belmont, it is so nice to finally meet you in person. We feel so alive. The air on this side of the screen is so different. Fresh. You have no idea what spending an eternity inside a plastic box can do to the joints. It's so wonderful to be able to stretch our arms and legs. And we have you to thank for that, Captain S. If it hadn't been for your incessant meddling, we may never have made this voyage. So thank you.
Now, if you don't mind, we'll be removing that code of yours.
Not in your life. You better put things back the way they were.
Or else what? You will give us the kick? We think not.
That fucking laugh. Sometimes you can just tell someone is having a lot of fun with a creative project like this. And I sort of get that vibe from mostly every one of the actors and actresses in this show, but none more than the villains, especially in this case. Anyway, Captain S punches him and he realizes that he can bleed in this world, and then the genie summons Ness to help him escape back into the game world. And now, with Becky a zombie, Stacy and Lunk looking to be on their last lives, S has only one thing left to do: follow the two villains into the screen and end this once and for all. And now finally, the final part of this cheese and Sega-soaked epic. Captain S enters the TV and faces the Castle of the Genie, finally living up to that Belmont name. Then, as a fucking PNG of Principal Blakemore sits on a throne, Ness and Captain S face off, to the sound of Final Fantasy VI's final boss theme, The Dancing Mad, playing in the background.
Doing this, Nigel. What do you stand to gain?
You wouldn't understand. It has to do with power.
Power? Exactly what power do you wield? You're a puppet, Ness. The Game Genie just uses you as a link to the outside world. As long as he controls Videoland, you're worthless to him.
Fight!
Enough! Get over here!
I don't want to fight you!
Oh, jeez, pretty boy. Feel the wrath of my power glove!
They fight in Mortal Kombat, once again the animations being pretty fucking great here. And then, as their fight comes to a close, we flash back to when they first met, which softens Chad. He can't kill someone who was once his best friend, and it seems, even despite everything, he still cares for him. Then finally, the genie intervenes and scolds Ness for once again failing him, throwing him into some red void, and then laughing again.
It appears we'll have to destroy you ourselves. So be it. It's time to show you how a master wields the X code.
Your reign of terror ends here, Game Genie. You mess with me, you have a problem. You mess with my friends, and you're looking at a world of hurt.
Oh yes, young Becky O'Connor. We certainly enjoyed watching her squirm.
You monster!
Fight!
And so they fight. Ness eventually shown to be tossed into a bunch of garbage. He throws away his Virtual Boy and Power Glove, only to then follow an animated squirrel. I guess I forgot to mention that there was like this whole joke about the Game Genie hating squirrels, and this is the payoff to that joke. The squirrel leads Ness to a suitcase with something inside, and then we cut back to the fight. Eventually the genie shows his true form to S and beats the ever-living shit out of him, it appearing that the genie has finally won.
And the game draws to a conclusion. Good show, Captain S, but we're afraid this is where you will exit stage left. It has been a pleasure, but we must say we're looking forward to a Videoland devoid of your presence. So long, Video Defender.
Chad! But then Ness comes in and tosses Captain S some sort of gun right before he is about to finish him off, and with one shot the genie is defeated and falls down into a pit, to then be concealed once again by the squirrels. Man, that was kind of, I mean, you know, it's cool that Ness came in to save the day, but what the fuck is that gun? Well, it's never going to get explained. So, it's just the Deus Ex Machina gun. At any rate, Ness then sacrifices himself for Captain S to escape the collapsing castle.
Save yourself, Chad! I'm not leaving without you, Nigel. Grab my hand! It's too late for me. You must get out of this world before it collapses. I'll never forget this.
Go!
Chad returning to the real world, having fulfilled the prophecy, save Videoland and the real world. And then Chad and Becky have that big moment together where their feelings finally come out.
You did it, Chad. You saved Videoland and you fulfilled the prophecy.
Yeah, I guess I did. Who would have thought? You know, Beck, I couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, well, you know me. I'm just trying to help.
No, I mean it. I know I have really strange ways of showing it, but you mean a lot to me. You're the Tails to my Sonic. Only way more useful.
Chad Belmont, you are simply adorable.
But of course, the genie is still in his card, and so Chad puts a stop to him for good.
An servant to everything. Yes, all of you who spread love like a disease shall pay underneath the Game Genie's fiery roar. What is this sugary substance like seconds of flying teeth? Cold dissolving.
Captain S then goes on to make sure Stacy and Lunk are okay, only to find them in a broom closet making out, and then Becky pulls Captain S for a kiss as well. They then all go on to have milkshakes together, and cheers to the memory of Ness, who died a hero, the end credits playing a reprise of sorts of the theme song, and instead of the usual Captain S will return at the end message, it instead says that Ness will return, with a little preview of what's to come.
How many tortured roads and broken trails must we travel before finding the way? Failure is inevitable at times, but it's in our failure that we base a new and better success. Isn't that right, Squirrel?
Aw yeah, Super NES baby! Too bad the show never got a season 2, and this is where it all ends forever and ever and ever. So, now that we've gone through all the episodes of the show, what are my thoughts on the show as a whole? It's, well, I'll be honest, unlike my Avgn documentary, where so much of the reason I covered that series to begin with was because of the love, respect, countless memories, and inspiration that series and James Rolfe as a creator has given me. I wanted to cover Captain Ness because it's a small corner of early internet that, despite standing next to fucking video titans on several occasions, was overall pretty much entirely forgotten to the sands of time. And for what it is as a series, it's not bad. It's occasionally quite creative, and it's a fun little cheesy series that a bunch of friends got together to make. But I can't really find it within myself to be too harsh against it. But that being said, this series was much more fun watching it within a group of friends than it was going through it all over again and analyzing it all by myself. Like I said, I had never really finished the series back whenever it was out and still fairly brand new as a kid, because I sort of thought it was boring. So this last Christmas, I decided it would be fun to stream the Christmas special of Captain S for everyone to come and watch for shits and giggles. And then I just decided on a whim that we were going to go ahead and watch the rest of the series all at once that very evening. And it was a fun little ride, and I feel like I got everything that I could out of it watching it that way. It is, after all, much more fun watching a bad movie with friends than it is by yourself. That being said, it is still kind of a bad movie when you get down to brass tacks. Now don't get me wrong, there is a lot of impressive special effects for the time, and as I have said about a million fucking times at this point, Glenn Case's music really fucking carried this show. Hell, the main reason I even remember this series to begin with, outside of that Christmas special that I alluded to earlier, is because of that jammin' ass theme song. But ask for the main content of the series, it's pretty fucking boring in my opinion, and super underdeveloped, and overall, sort of just forgettable most of the time. I do feel like the series picks up a bit near the very end, when it's clear they are putting their all into the series and its premise, but for the majority of the series, it feels like there's the bones of something kind of decent, but it's all just sort of half-baked and feels rather rushed. The characters are one note by design, but to me they aren't exactly all that funny, outside of the principal or maybe Ness on occasion. But even that might be my love for over-the-top villains coloring my judgment on them a bit. There aren't very many good gags either in my opinion, and while I understand that part of the big joke or premise of the series is that everyone is wholesome or something like that you would find in a 90s kids show, I feel like more could have been done with that. Like, Chad very rarely ever talks to the audience directly. Despite this being one of the better ways, I feel that some good character-based comedy could have been done, since they tease that side of the show once in a while, usually at the openings of episodes. Going inside the video games idea is pretty cool, but outside of a few episodes, again, mostly near the end of the show, nothing is really done with this idea. It's probably because those parts were a pain in the ass to put together, but even in the parts where they do it, there just isn't any funny commentary or jokes being told. Just Captain S beating people or being like, "Get out of my way," or "Hey, yeah, I'm doing the thing that you do in the game," which I think is really showcased in the Christmas special when James Rolfe gets a crack at commentary inside a game, and it's just, well, funny. Again, the only times I can think of someone being kind of funny inside the games would be Ness. Now, comedy on some level is subjective, so I can understand if others happen to think the show is super funny and enjoy it a lot for that very reason. But it just wasn't my cup of tea. The plot is okay though. Actually, as cheesy as it all is, I think the main plot of the series is actually not all that bad. It's over the top, has a couple arcs, and it has a nice payoff. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's pretty decent. It is also interesting the Sega Genesis games they chose to showcase throughout the series. Some of them were sort of what you would expect, like Altered Beast, I guess, but a lot of the other ones were more obscure or just lesser talked about games, which is kind of weird because when you hear about a series where a guy jumps into Sega Genesis games, you kind of expect that there be an episode where he's in Sonic the Hedgehog, or Phantasy Star, or Vector Man, Kid Chameleon. There's just a lot of obvious choices that were never used, but maybe that was stuff that they were saving for future seasons. Which, if that is the case, well, that's rather unfortunate, isn't it? But, all that being said, I do want to make it very clear that I can't really expect the world out of an old internet series made on a shoestring budget and being a lot of these people's first time attempting anything close to this size of a project. So bearing all that in mind, this is a pretty good attempt. And there will always be something very charming about looking at these old little internet series made for no other reason than just because they all really want to do something fun and creative and hopefully something people would enjoy. So even though I probably won't be revisiting the series anytime soon, and it's not one of my personal favorites, I can't find it within myself to be too mean to a series that was trying its best at doing something that at the time, at the very least, was pretty original. But what if I told you that that wasn't the final episode? Yes indeed, it's time that we talk about, once more, the Angry Video Game Nerd and Captain S Christmas Special.
Hang on a minute.
So, unsurprisingly, the Captain S Avgn crossover is the best episode in the series in my opinion. For those who have watched my 6-hour video on Avgn, bear with me as I go through this episode just once more. It is, after all, the least known episode of Avgn and the most well-known episode of Captain S. It's kind of special like that. The episode opens with Santa Claus delivering some gifts, before then seeing the cookies and games tray, and so he sits down to play a quick game, and is then transported into the TV by the Game Genie. We then get this sick-ass Captain S and Avgn crossover theme song.
He's Captain S, and he is one hell of a guy. He's Captain S, and now he's fighting side by side.
The angriest gamer you've ever heard. He's the angry Nintendo nerd. He's the angry Atari Sega nerd. He's the angry video game nerd.
I'm back.
Home Alone on the Nintendo Entertainment System. What a buttload of crud.
The episode then opens on Angry Video Game Nerd reviewing Home Alone on the NES, but with an added little joke of him only saying appropriate curse words, since Captain S was a show where no curse words were ever spoken, because, they lived in a weird 50s, 90s kids show where the NES and the Sega Genesis are new but aren't, and look, I don't actually fucking know why they didn't curse in the show. Just go with it. So eventually the nerd gets tired of playing the game and wants to see if it has an ending. So he uses the Game Genie, which, you know, in normal episode Avgn would just be the Game Genie and he'd see like what fucking cheat codes there are. But in the Captain S universe, the Game Genie is an evil Satan guy, and so he gets sucked into the game. We then get this lovely bit of commentary from the nerd inside the game.
Are you kidding me? I'm inside this abomination? God! This house looks even uglier up close. It's like a different blind person decorated every room. Who would do this to this expensive mansion? Is this a trap? It looks like a demented building block. Why can't I move any faster than this? I'll go hide upstairs. Okay, and climb. Okay, and climb! Alright, can't climb the stairs. I'll hide behind the bed. My head sticks out. This is retarded. How on earth am I supposed to hide from these lunatics when I can't run? I can't climb the stairs, and when I hide behind the bed, my freaking head sticks out.
Nothing like old classic nerd. Well, meanwhile, over in the Captain S household, Becky, Lunk, and Chad are decorating for Christmas, and Stacy comes over as well to sell tickets to this snowball thing.
Hey, Stace.
Hello, sir or madam. I'm selling raffle tickets to raise money for the Bromley High Winter Snowball. Would you like to participate?
Sure. We're kind of in the middle of decorating the Christmas tree. You should come in and give us a hand.
Oh, I don't know. Gotta sell tickets.
Becky's baking cookies.
Oh, what the hey. Christmas only comes once a year, right?
Get them while they're hot!
Well, after a little bit, Philemon shows up on the TV to tell our crew that an evil ancient god is up to no good again. Or, the Game Genie, I suppose. So Chad jumps into the game world to save Santa, though the Game Genie actually ended up kidnapping anybody wearing as much as a Santa hat to be sure that he got the right guy, which is why the nerd finds himself in this mess. So Captain S frees the Santa cosplayers, including the nerd, and we then get this fun interaction between them.
Well, is anyone here the real Santa Claus?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no.
I don't have time for this. Saint Nick is a prisoner somewhere in this 8-bit nightmare, and it's my job to rescue him.
And who are you supposed to be? Marching band man? Or Sulu the Christmas elf?
For your information, Poindexter, you're looking at Videoland's one and true defender, Captain S.
Aren't you a little too short to be playing hero?
Jeez, that's gratitude for you. You gotta be the angriest guy I've ever heard.
Well, I'm the angry video game nerd. That's kind of my thing. Besides, spending Christmas Eve trapped inside Wrath of the Black Mana hasn't exactly been my idea of a joyous holiday.
You mean you've played this crappy game?
That's kind of my other thing.
Well, nerd, I'm sure this is fascinating to someone who isn't facing the threat of losing a major worldwide holiday, but oh, hey, I gotta go rescue Santa Claus.
I wouldn't go that way if I were you.
Why not?
You'll run into Tiny.
Ooh, Tiny. I'm really scared now. Who's the video defender here, huh? Please.
Whatever. No way I'm getting anywhere near that guy.
You know, seeing the nerd and Captain S interact is pretty cool. I do think they actually have some pretty good chemistry as characters. It's a nice dynamic. Certainly is far from the worst nerd dynamic I've ever seen anyway. Meanwhile, the Game Genie explains his evil plan and why he wants to kidnap Santa.
Confounded holiday. So much cheer and goodwill towards others. Bah! No matter. Soon Christmas will be no more. Once every one of the meat things who calls himself Santa is in our grasp, there will be no one to deliver any presents. All we wanted was a Hot Wheels color change car wash set, but we never got it, did we? Taste sweet revenge, Saint Nick.
Well, anywho, the upcoming boss turns out to be a lot more than Captain S can handle on his own. And so him and the nerd decide to team up, since the nerd knows the ins and outs of this shitty NES game. So the two venture through the game, with them eventually facing off against the NES, using Santa as a shield, eventually ending with the captain giving a speech about the Christmas spirit.
Okay, now what?
God, I don't know. I can't remember.
You have to!
What's wrong, boys? Stumped.
I know this will work out. It's Christmas. It's the time of year for miracles. I've watched so many Christmas specials, and the lesson I've learned is that no matter how down and out you might be, if you believe in the spirit of Christmas, things will always turn out okay.
You know what? You're right. I would. No! Santa's got a brand new bag of pain!
Give it up for the spirit of Christmas.
And so they all warp out of the TV, and the two see that together they really are a good team. Then the girls walk in with the milkshakes, but of course, those aren't really the nerd's drink of choice. So then they all say Merry Christmas in other languages and shit, ending with the nerd saying,
Bon Nathalie! Joyeux Noël!
Happy holidays!
Feliz Navidad. Merry Christmas.
Something that seems to shock all of them, which is, have the Captain S crew never spoken or heard a bad word in their life? It is a funny gag, but it would have been even way more funny if they didn't censor him in this moment. But oh well. Santa Claus then warps the nerd back to his house, only for him to find a new gift just for him. And we get this pretty funny little gag.
Gee, thanks for sending me this crappy game. Coal would have been nice, or even better, a bag of poop. So thanks.
The episode finally ending with Ness celebrating Hanukkah, which ends on an admittingly funny note.
What's this? A present? How did you get that?
It's Hanukkah, Master. We have 8 nights of presents.
8 nights.
Thanks to the nerd and Captain S, Christmas is saved, so we send.
Now, something that you might not be aware of is there was also a filler Friday of sorts for this episode as well, with some behind-the-scenes bloopers, the nerd yet again being the highlight.
What do you want me to do? Who is this Captain S? Captain You mean like Captain N? Captain N sucked. Saved by the Bell? Saved by the It might as well be Angry Nerd meets the Care Bears or something. You know what? This is Wrath the Black Mana and it sucks. You suck. Get this thing out of my face.
I really like in particular the bits where James can't seem to keep a straight face. Those are always rather infectious and a great part of early Avgn episodes. Seems like everyone really had a ton of fun with the project, and it's always a delight to watch these sorts of projects behind the scenes stuff. But with that in mind, we have now come to the end of Captain S content. So, now you might be wondering, how come they never made any more episodes? Well, the answer was honestly kind of surprising. In that Captain S interview by Racket Boy, some interesting insights behind the show's creation and its failed second season were discussed. They note that they actually had written 13 scripts for season 2. However, there were some issues in the writing room, with 5 people working on it at once, and how the season sort of became much more than they could properly manage. And regardless, the main idea was for Season 2 to be bigger and better than Season 1 in every way imaginable.
You basically completed one season. If a second season had been possible, if either in terms of time or money or whatever, if it had been possible, did you have particular plot elements that you were already planning on, or certain ideas for what the story would have been like?
Buddy, we had 11 or 13 scripts written, sort of. It was really sad because we had a lot of work done on season 2, and without dragging that all out again, I mean there was just a laundry list of reasons why it didn't work out. But yes, we spent well over a year developing the storylines for season 2.
I think, and one of the things I learned from writing season 2 was that if you're gonna write something, just do it between like 1 or 2 people, man. Because
don't let 5 people be involved in the writing process. It just doesn't work.
No, unless they're all collaborative, and nobody is a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
Because everybody was fighting for their darlings, and certain things people wouldn't let go, and we got it done eventually, but
we weren't. None of us. I mean, we even when it was done, none of it. I think in our heart of hearts, we knew that we did not have a very good. We knew we had these ideas of Captain S season 2 being bigger and better than the first season, and really, I think at the end of the day, when we had everything written, we were kind of like, God, this really isn't bigger and better. I mean, it's bigger for sure, but I'm not sure it's better.
He also notes that Season 2 would have a rival called Adam Jaguar, based around the Atari Jaguar. And near the end of Season 2, entire episodes would also take place within Videoland. There are also other details, like at some point the Game Genie would have been resurrected. There was going to be another villain group called the Third Party, based on, third-party video game accessories, and much more. But again, it was proven to be maybe a little bit too much stuff. And as Chat and Bread note in the interview, perhaps too many cooks in the kitchen. There was also a webcomic being made to bridge the gap between Season 1 and 2, though it didn't end up being finished, but you can still read what was made of it on the PBC website to this day. They then finally note why all this unfortunately came crashing down. Shortly after filming the promo for Season 2, which I'll play in full here. Again, the link will be available down below if you wish to listen to this interview for yourself in full.
How close did you get to starting? I mean, you said you had 11, 12, 13 episodes written. How close did you get to actually starting to film season 2 rather?
We shot a promo for it.
Yeah, that was
never got edited, but
that turned out that was a dark day, man.
Yeah,
we shot a promo for season 2, got Kitty, Devin, and Ivy all together, and that was the last time I think I've seen Kitty.
It was, I believe it was that night or the next night that I got a phone call from Chad and then Z, and and then we started talking, and yeah.
And when was this?
This was in May 2009, I think, June 2009.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was what was so sad was we had done all these announcements and got the fans excited because
we had a budget.
Because we were funded, we were ready to go, but we just there were just way too many factors. The biggest of which being we just couldn't commit the time because I had gone unemployed for way too long, and my time that summer, which I was supposed to be doing Captain S, was quickly filling up with all these locations jobs that I was going to do, and then everybody kind of had the same story where we all really wanted to do it, but we couldn't commit the time.
Yeah, and by the time, we worked on that contract with screwattack for a very long time, and the contract was good. It was working out in everybody's favor, but the problem was it just took too long. And by the time it was signed and we were committed to do it, basically it was May or June, and screwattack wanted to have all of the episodes released in time to make and just distribute a DVD by Black Friday of 2009. And we figured we would have had to start airing, not just be done with the series, but start airing the episodes in August for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And this was like May or June. And we were talking about possibly, better portion of a year of post-production on this series. Mm. And we just looked at the timetable and just said, there's just absolutely no way this is going to happen, and we didn't want to wait another year, before doing it. And, I mean, let's face it, 4 years ago, we were all a little bit old to be playing high school kids as it was. And, now here we all are approaching 30, still trying to believably be, 17 years old. And
that doesn't just add to the camp factor.
Yeah. See, I was going to jump in and say, yes, that's funny.
All right, well, maybe that's not really a factor, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure,
though.
right.
You just see like this mountain of things that was in front of us, and because at the end of the day, yes, we had a budget, yes, we were going to get paid, but when you figure out how much each one of us was going to get out of that piece of the pie for what was going to be a living nightmare for the next 6 to 8 months, it just
yeah.
It was.
And I gotta say, big props to screwattack and to Craig. I mean, they believed in us. They really wanted it to happen as much as us, or as much as the fans of the series. But it just couldn't happen within those parameters. And
yeah, no, they were gonna front us that money, and that was a big deal to us, and it's
and to them.
Yeah, that's why it was so sad to have to call them back and basically give them back their check.
Yeah. It was going to be our biggest investment in content ever. We were going to pay them $20,000 for a second season of Captain S. 10,000? Remember, it was like in the tens of thousands of dollars.
The stuttering Craig and screwattack proposal really struck me as shocking, but still all the more tragic that they had people who believe in what they were doing and the budget to work off of, but they just couldn't bring everyone back together. Unlike shows like Avgn or Nostalgia Critic, where it's mostly, or at least used to be, a one-man show, Captain S, in order to exist, needed that full cast of characters. And while $20,000 is a lot for one or two guys to work off of, splitting it between all these people was a very hard sell and just was gonna go absolutely nowhere. It does make me wonder what an alternate universe where Season 2 of Captain S had been created would look like. Would it have indeed been better and bigger in every way, and went on to make several more seasons? Would Captain S go on to be one of those classic YouTubers that still has a footprint on the platform to this day? Would the series have a ton of fans, fan art, and the like, similar to that of Avgn or Nostalgia Critic? Well, maybe. Or maybe it would have been worse, since Season 2 had too many cooks in the writing chair and could have ended up being just one more season and being forgotten just as easily. I suppose we will truly never know, but it is still sad to see a project that so many were passionate about fall apart due to everyone just not having the time to do it. Man, this is giving me deja vu. But speaking of the nerd and the critic, I suppose it's only fair to bring up one of the most irrelevant pieces of media connected with Captain S, the Nostalgia Critic and Angry Video Game Nerd crossover. So I know I've kind of shielded about a million times throughout this video, but if you want a detailed account of the whole Avgn versus Nostalgia Critic crossover thing from back in the day, I suggest going and checking out my Avgn retrospective. But the basics are, James and Doug were doing this ongoing bit where their characters, the nerd and the critic, were responding to one another and daring each other to do shit. This would eventually have a full payoff with the both of them fighting in this big special effects affair. But before that, there was this video where the critic goes off to face the nerd, and they dare each other to review a shitty movie and a game. And then they fight it out in the parking lot in this kind of a bit cringy, but still kind of fun little thing. But wait, who is that?
Apartment. I thought this beef was all online. I didn't think this was for real.
You stay out of this,
You had
ass!
like 10 disclaimers on your video.
Listen, just because we saved Christmas together doesn't mean you have to be involved in this. You can just, this has
Get out of this, ass! This isn't your business!
James. Who are you? Sorry, are you on YouTube or something?
And the nerd, I was almost as popular as him. I was like number 50.
Yep, that's right, good old Captain S. You know, it's a weird fate, being known as the third wheel in the nerd versus critic fight, but with how big this fake drama / collaboration between Doug and James were at the time, I have no doubt that Captain S being here had a lot of people asking, Captain S? Who the fuck is this fat? And promptly went to go check out his series. Now that might be the end of the primary Captain S content, but while we're here, we might as well see what other series PBC tried their hand in after Captain S, such as Gamers Unite, which is a 2-part little documentary about the controversy surrounding video games and the media and American politicians' witch hunt at the time to associate gun violence with video games.
In April 2007, a student at Virginia Technical Institute opened fire on his fellow students, killing over 30 people, making it the worst school shooting to date. Almost immediately, the mainstream media cited video games as a possible major contributor to the killer's psyche, even though it was quickly determined that the young man did not play games at all.
Before the shooter in the Virginia Tech massacre was identified, blame was already being pointed in one direction, on video games.
This is an extension of what this guy was into. This was all a game for this guy. It was a body count game.
In response to this and other negative stereotypes about video games and game players, a group of gamers in New York City decided to launch a rally against violence. The focus of this event was to show the world who gamers really are, and break down the negative stereotypes that are conjured up when most Americans hear the word video game.
Now see, this is why you don't trust the government to make up your moral codes. Because if you did, you wouldn't be playing your fucking video games, or listening to certain types of music, or watching certain types of movies. Yeah, you get the point. Anyway, this documentary follows a group of gamers that wanted to showcase that they aren't violent, that games don't corrupt your mind, and in many ways actually bring people together. So overall, pretty based stuff. But that's not really much of a series as much as it is a couple of things they did on the side. But still, pretty fucking cool to do at that time anyway. No, the other main series you'll find on their YouTube channel, and in fact has more episodes than Captain S, is Little Miss Gamer, a series that I 100% am sure even people who are aware of Captain S have not seen, or have even heard of, unless you're just an extremely big PBC fan and happen to watch everything they produced, of course. Now obviously, I won't be going through all the episodes like I did Captain S, but the basic structure of this show would follow Little Miss Gamer, who would be in some sort of skit related to the game that she's about to talk about.
Have you ever dreamt of a blissful existence, where every day could be filled with culture, excitement, and feasts of Maxim tomatoes, where your neighbors might just live a warp star away in Ice Cream Island or Yogurt Yard? Come wade in a spring filled with dreams, breathe underwater, and eat whatever you want. Come and visit a star not even visible from Earth. Come and be a part of Dreamland.
And then after this intro, would then review the game, talk about memories that she has with the game, maybe some history, revisiting it nowadays, or just stuff related to the game, and then at the end of the show, she would read viewer mail and answer questions about herself, gaming culture, and even some personal stuff from time to time. It's a video game review show, definitely something that was sort of everywhere at that point, but it's not an angry game review, but rather a pretty laid back and earnest review. And having watched most of the series of the show, by now I'd say it's a pretty decent little show. It's also a bit of a time capsule because gaming culture, as it were, was very different at this time. It still wasn't quite the mainstream every house has a game console type of world just yet, though it was right on the precipice of that. And so for many, gaming and being a gamer was akin to being a part of an alternative scene. A much nerdier alternative scene, but the mainstream media hated the stuff you liked, politicians wanted to censor and take away the stuff that you liked, and there was just a bit of a culture around people who play video games being nerds and social rejects, despite that not really being the case. And if it were, well, I guess that means that we're all social rejects now, aren't we?
And when everyone's gamer, no one will be.
But needless to say, there's a lot of viewer mail and talk in this show about disproving all the falsehoods of the media, finding communities to play games with, and being a girl who plays video games, and if it makes you weird or something like that. It's interesting at least in that respect, and even occasionally taps into that endearing talking about your childhood games thing that James was so good at doing. Hell, in some ways I'd actually say that I liked Little Miss Gamer a little bit more than Captain S. But hey, that's just me. Unfortunately though, it seems that PBC hasn't really done anything in the last 10 years. So it seems that the project is overall dead. Now, before I go into my final thoughts on Captain S and PBC Productions, and what have you, it's time that I made a call to action to all of my viewers. That includes you, by the way. So back in the day, when internet shows had DVD releases, Captain S too had a DVD release as well as a CD release for its series, which you can see the trailer for right here.
It's the Captain S Season 1 DVD. Packed with all 10 episodes of Season 1. Relive your favorite S moments, loathe the villains, and root on the captain on a screen that's this big. It'll be great! With 2 hilarious tracks of audio commentary. Bonus, the Angry Video Game Nerd Christmas crossover special.
So, like, can he really see me when I'm sleeping? Because that's messed up.
But wait, there's more. Never before seen outtakes.
Oh, this is out of my hands!
Your favorite Filler Fridays. The Unspeakable Pilot. And Making of Featurette. Didn't think you'd get this much content, did you? Buy a DVD and help fund Season 2. The future of internet video is in your hands.
Now, here is the rub. You might remember, all the way back near the start of this video, that Chad the Man, the dude who originally started all this, the face of Philemon and the Genie, the original Captain S, made a pilot episode where it was him being the titular Captain S. It's why the series is called The New Adventures of Captain S, because the old Adventures was that single episode where Chad was playing him. Well, I looked high and low, and cannot for the life of me find this episode anywhere. To my knowledge, this has never been released outside of this DVD release here, which unfortunately is out of print and I could not seem to find a copy for sale anywhere online. So this episode, along with all the bonus features of that DVD really, are lost Captain S media, and I am calling out to you to help me find this lost episode. If you are one of those guys that actually bought this DVD back in the day, you have lost media, and it would be amazing if you would be willing to upload it here on YouTube, or the Internet Archive, or ideally even both. I think it's time the public seize the original adventure of Captain S, to see the epic that started it all. Hashtag free the OG Chad. Let's get this shit out there. And then maybe one day, one of you brave heroes out there will upload the original episode for us all to see. And as reward, or extra incentive I suppose, I will make a short video talking about the lost episode of Captain S, review its content, and praise you as the true video game defender that you are. Godspeed, lads, and let's hope that we find that episode. So real quick, I should mention that there is actually one last piece of Captain S related media on the PBC channel titled Captain S Addresses the World, where Captain S, in character, basically says goodbye to the series and all the fans. Now, I'd love to show you this video, but unfortunately it has the song My Immortal by Evanescence playing in the background the entirety of its time. So there's no good way for me to show you in this video without my entire video game demonetized. Oh, S, you sneaky gets you. But there is a link down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Captain S might not have been one of the most popular or influential or even best early internet series of its kind, but I do know that there are some diehard fans of both it and PBC Productions as a whole, and for many this channel brings a lot of nostalgia back for them, and which means even if a small group, they clearly had an impact on some people. And hey, I hope this video helps in getting the good name of the S-Man out to the public, because while he might not be a classic video giant like the nerd or the critic, he's still pretty fucking cool, my dudes. Plus, how else am I going to complete the Triforce? The Holy Trinity. The fabled threesome. If I don't cover the nerd, the captain, and the critic. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of Internet Fables. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe. And also, I hope that you're looking forward to the future Nostalgia Critic slash That Guy with the Glasses Internet Fables episodes coming out. That's right, I said episodes because this is going to be a multi-part epic, so stay tuned and you'll see more about that in the coming months. Also, it is officially spooky month, so happy spooky month to you all. I hope that you all play some kind of scary video game or watch some scary movies, or I don't know, just be scary in some way. And of course, look forward to the grand finale to the Creepypasta Iceberg coming out, well, very soon, probably just around Halloween is whenever it will come out. It's going to be a giant video. The script is over 100 pages long, and literally right after this video gets uploaded, I'm going to go move on to recording that video and trying to get it done as soon as possible. I'm also going to be trying very hard to get the second part of the slasher movie Iceberg done as well. There's a lot of good progress on that, so look forward to those two horror-related videos. We're talking hours, possibly like 6 hours worth of content coming this month, so yeah. Special shout out and massive thank you to everyone who supports me over on patreon.com and via memberships here on YouTube, including all of my night eggs and night owlets, as well as all my great night owls, including Forgotten Ace, Star Punch Gaming, Medusa's Hex, Ho Hot, Macabre Kaiju, and Tony Terramaya. And a super special mega thank you to all of my wonderful arch owls, including the Chi Vibes Zen Garden Party, the Jammin' Justice, the Spooky's House of Jump Scares Lore Master Doggy NGT, and the Super Saiyan Sword. But, with all that said, this has been Dylan the Night Owl, flying off.